Prosecutor General on this platform has legal and ethical responsibilities to be ministers of justice and to prosecute without fear and favour and with independence and with integrity. I made it clear on the 25th of February when I was in Bangladesh that we have the ICC. I recall that all parties to a conflict have responsibilities, whether that's the forces allied to the Russian Federation or forces on the Ukraine side. Every individual has responsibilities. Nobody has a blank check to do what they want, and the rule of law is here, combined with collective will, to ensure that this doesn't become pious words and hot air, but is rendered practical and effective. This morning we also met with many other national authorities, but also Commissioner Johansson and also Commissioner Reinders attended, and I think it shows that there is this common front of legality that is absolutely essential, not just for Ukraine, for the Ukraine situation, but for the continuation of peace and security all over the world. We need to work understanding that the rule of law provides an essential anchor that can prevent conflagrations if we are willing to uphold those standards and not sacrifice them based upon the exigencies of a particular situation or short-term political advantage. There's a mass of information, obviously, from every crime scene that we look at, and Ukraine is no example. The team has been, when I opened the investigation on the 2nd of March, the very next day I deployed a team to the region. I went to Ukraine in April, I went again in May. On the 17th of May, we deployed the largest single deployment in the history of the Office of the Prosecutor, 42 experts, permanent members of the office, and also 30 that were seconded by the Kingdom of the Netherlands. This dynamic approach, this imaginative approach, trying to harness excellent forensic experts, crime scene specialists from national authorities, working within the parameters of the Rome Statute, really is the way in which we're going to do justice, I think, of scales of this magnitude. And I'm hoping very much that there will be almost I won't call it a relay race, but there'll be a passing of the baton, that as the Kingdom of the Netherlands leave, other national authorities will also support us, so we can also work with the Prosecutor General of Ukraine, discharge our independent responsibilities, but provide also support to Ukraine that has the principal responsibility to have independent and impartial investigations when they are made, regardless of the perpetrator. The office is moving generally, and I've said it before my election, to a greater field presence. This is a key. We can't fly in and fly out from situations around the world. That's as true in Sudan as it is in Ukraine, and we are hopefully in the next few weeks I will be working towards opening an office in Kiev. We've already seen it. We've had very good cooperation from the Prosecutor General, and I think that's something that's very important. It's been mentioned today that aside from the 6 countries, 6 states that are now members of the joint investigative team, I think there are 13 other states that are conducting structural or other investigations, and I welcome that. There's a simple reality that the rule of law is not here for the judges, it's not here for the lawyers, it's not here for institutions, it's here for people that are really extremely traumatized in many situations, either as refugees or in areas that are under bombardment or that are in subways, who don't know what tomorrow will bring. And I think the crimes within the jurisdiction of the court is a call for action in every situation of building deeper partnerships. We shouldn't view national authorities as a threat. The reality is every national authority, whether it's based upon a membership of a JIT, a joint investigation team, universal jurisdiction, should be applauded if they step up, because that way we will hopefully deliver greater justice than if we have the hubris of thinking we can deal with these crimes of this magnitude alone. I think key to that is redefining success for the Office of the Prosecutor. I think we need to go deeper. We need to use technology. We're actively moving on that. Artificial intelligence, moving to the cloud and using different tools for machine learning and translation and transcription services that are available. But this is not only so that we can put stronger cases to judges to decide, it's not decided by me, but also so we can provide reliable, hopefully, authenticated evidence and information to national authorities so they can vindicate their own laws. And they collectively, this common front, hopefully can provide some modicum of accountability for the crimes that we are seeing in Ukraine and that really should no longer be tolerated. And I think this forum, with the convening assistance of Eurojust, with the galvanized skills that we have in terms of national war crimes officers and national authorities, is the way to go. And we need to show the perseverance, politically, legally, have the stamina not to succumb to the fatigue that will inevitably set in as other events take the headlines on TV stations. We need to really commit that we will stay the course to ensure that the rights of victims and survivors are vindicated by way of independent, impartial investigations that are not target-led, that are directed by reliable, authenticated evidence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Then, Mr. Hamran, if you could please take the floor.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for accepting our invitation for this press conference. I would like to start with words of gratitude to all my colleagues sitting here because they showed bravery. They also showed that they care about the rule of law and they are not afraid to proceed with the investigations despite of the very challenging political and geopolitical circumstances. Ladies and gentlemen, never in the history of armed conflicts has the legal community responded with such determination. Only 6 days after the conflict started here in this building, here at Eurojust, the decision to set up the joint investigation team was made. 1 month later, the joint investigation team agreement was signed. Another month later, the ICC joined the joint investigation team as a participant. And now, 3 months, 3 additional EU member states are joining the joint investigation team. In parallel, there are 6 EU member states that have opened their own investigations based on the principle of universal jurisdictions, and we know that other non-EU countries are doing the same. Meanwhile, NGOs and civil society organizations are also collecting precious information about core international crimes allegedly committed in Ukraine. We can fairly conclude that the war in Ukraine will be the most documented armed conflict we have ever witnessed so far. As a result, evidence is located in many different jurisdictions, whether in the EU or outside, or collected by the ICC investigators. And we see an urgent need for coordination. And this is where Eurojust comes in. We have more than 20 years of experience in coordinating large-scale operations, and we would like to offer our experience and expertise to the members of the joint investigation team and also to other countries having their own investigations. Few words about the role of Eurojust and the support to joint investigation team. First of all, Eurojust was providing legal support to a joint investigation team. As you know, joint investigation team needs a legal framework in which it operates. So we helped to negotiate the so-called joint investigation team agreement, and which was then signed by all countries. We are very pleased that the ICC prosecutor decided to join the joint investigation team, and this has happened in the first time in the history. So also our legal support was related to that aspect to make sure that the impartial and independent standing of the ICC is properly reflected in the JIT agreement. We, as Eurojust, will provide also technical support to joint investigation team, phones, laptops, scanners, printers, and other equipment which is important to collect war crime evidence. Eurojust will also provide to the joint investigation team financial support. You know that it's very essential that prosecutors, investigators, police officers can actually meet, that they can travel, that they have accommodation, that they can talk in their mother tongue. So we will provide interpretation, translation, and we will also provide interpretation of all collected evidence which was collected in other languages than in English. We will also do the same for the forensic reports. We will make sure actually that everything what was collected within this joint investigation team is actually shareable with all involved parties. And this is the biggest advantage of a joint investigation team, because from this moment, whatever piece of evidence is collected by these countries is immediately available to all JIT partners without any long letters of requests or European investigation orders. So we believe that with this step we will add speed and credibility to this joint investigation team. Obviously, this is a big responsibility. We understand this at Eurojust. This is not only the biggest joint investigation team we have ever supported, but as I mentioned, this is also the first time the ICC is joining a joint investigation team as a participant. Let me also say a few words about an important amendment and also pay gratitude to our colleagues in Brussels, whether in the Commission or the Council or in the European Parliament. Actually, we realized that we have to adapt our Eurojust regulation just to provide tailor-made services to the investigation of core international crimes. And actually, all this change happened in record time, and therefore, a special gratitude to our partners in Brussels institutions. So actually, according to this change, which will enter into force tomorrow, we will be able to centralize all collected evidence, whether in this joint investigation team or collected by other countries who are not yet members of the joint investigation team. Eurojust will be able to collect, store, preserve, and share core international crime evidences, analyze them, and make sure that prosecutors are simply aware who has collected what and which piece of evidence is available in which country and how it can be requested. So this amendment will create a kind of core international crime evidence database, which will be a huge step forward, I believe. As I mentioned, that this will actually allow us to move from a very scattered, fragmented approach to a very structured approach, and we will be able to provide to prosecutors with a detailed analysis of the available evidence that will be directly available through judicial cooperation channels. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is all from my side, and again, gratitude to all those visible, but also who are invisible, but actually playing very important role in this investigation.
Thank you, Mr. Hamran. Before we go to questions and answers, I just want to introduce here as well the Prosecutors General of Estonia and Latvia, who might be able to answer your questions if you would have any questions for them. And a recording of this press conference will be available afterwards, because we had a short delay in the beginning with the live stream. We have time for some questions and answers. Could you please indicate the media you represent and who you'd like to ask the question to? The gentleman in the middle there. Yes.
Hello. Hi, yes. Danny Kemp from AFP, Agence France Presse. A question for Mrs. Venediktova and Mr. Khan, if I may. I know you're investigating war crimes all over alleged war crimes all over Ukraine at the moment. Are you aware of, or are you investigating any particular crimes in Donbass at the moment during the current offensive? Thank you.
Maybe I start. Of course, we started huge thousands cases about what we see in Donbass. Actually, when we can make some typology, if we speak about war crimes, it against forcible transfer of people. We started several cases about such forcible transfer of children, adult people to different parts of Russian Federation. Then, of course, we can speak about torturing people, killing civilians, and you saw everything destroying civilian infrastructure. Actually, when we speak about Rome Statute, you can see 3 pages in Rome Statute in Article 8 only about war crimes. Unfortunately, almost all of this we see in Ukraine. What is the difficulty? How we can investigate? We don't have access to the territories. But we have some access to people, not to all of them. That people whom we could evacuate before, we interviewed all of them. Besides, we interviewed war prisoners whom we could exchange from Russia Federation. That's why we have some information about what's checked information. I now speak only about prosecutorial information. From other side, from the first days of war, our prosecutors were on the border. They interviewed refugees, huge number of refugees. We tried from first days of war find victims whom we can give status of victim in criminal case. Why it's important? Because maybe then these people will live not on the territory of Ukraine. Maybe they will live abroad during long period of time. But we need that all of them have their rights in the criminal cases. And I hope that we can do it parallel process of civil confiscation. Actually, all war criminals who are responsible for their crimes after court verdicts should pay for all these crimes in framework of confiscation. Thank you.
We see around the world, in terms of situations within the court's jurisdiction, examples where we investigate where we can physically enter, and also examples where we are investigating where we're not permitted entry or can't get in. I'm not going to start discussing the areas or the focus of OTP investigations. This is a criminal investigation. I've said when I was in Bushehr, in fact, with the Prosecutor General, that unfortunately the reality seems to be that Ukraine is a crime scene, and we'll do our best to focus our resources to make sure we can get to grips with what has taken place and elevate the most serious apparent crimes for investigation. And we'll keep going, hopefully, until justice is done, and that's why we have judges to make those final determinations.
Okay, the next question. The gentleman at the back there, the left at the back.
Isa Taibi from Al Jazeera. I have the question to Mr. Karim Khan, prosecutor of the ICC. First, will murder and killings of journalists and foreign journalists correspondents in Ukraine will be part of investigation into the war crime in Ukraine? And the second question, sir, our colleague, the Palestinian-American journalist Shireen Abu Aqla, the brave correspondent journalist in Al Jazeera, was killed by a bullet in the head on her by the Israeli army. As this is a state crime, are you ready to investigate in this crime, or will you accept the review and investigation of this case? Thank you, sir.
As I said a moment ago, this is a criminal investigation. Of course, we're trying to have proper, candid discussions with the press to a certain area, but not to a level that will imperil investigations. As a prosecutor and as an office, we will investigate to the best of our abilities crimes within our jurisdiction. Of course, we've seen around the world, whether you look at human rights or you look at crimes within the court's jurisdiction, an increased proclivity to target journalists around the world. We've seen that Nobel Prize winners have come from countries where journalists have been extremely courageous. Just yesterday, of course, a journalist from France was killed, but I'm not going to comment without investigation on whether or not these are going to be focuses. We have to look at every particular situation, and if there are crimes and if we have evidence, we know what our job is. Thank you.
Next question, the lady in the middle there. Yes, please.
Hi, Terry Schultz with Deutsche Welle, German Public Television. A question to hopefully more than one of you who will take it. How are these investigations going to be funded? Where is the money going to come from? I know that you said Eurojust will be providing some of it, but surely more is needed. And are the national governments hoping that more countries who have launched their universal jurisdiction cases will bring it under the joint investigation team, and so there will be fewer individual countries pursuing these cases? Thank you.
I can start when my colleague will have a think about it. About funding, actually for us very important to have assistance and support from EU, USA, UK. It's very important. What prosecutors have really? Be sure we don't touch the money at all. Actually, we have salary only from the budget of Ukraine. We have such rules in our laws, impossible in other ways. But we are very appreciated for experts, for all kinds of experts. That experts which we can have on the ground, ballistic, forensic, damage experts, everyone, actually. And from other side, very important to have experts of international humanitarian law. Because, unfortunately, Ukrainian prosecutors are experienced about war crimes. We have war in our country since 2014, but not full-scale invasion, actually. And when we have now so huge number of criminal cases, it means that all our law enforcement agencies are on the ground, and we need people who will be with them. That's why I am very appreciated as a prosecutor general for that help which we have. I am very appreciated for French team who helped us still there in Ukraine on the ground, all kinds of experts and investigators. Then I am very appreciated for Slovakian team, they were on the ground. Lithuanian team, they are now in Ukraine. ICC absolutely independent, but actually their work, it's help to us because they can take some cases as their job. And again, you understand that every day we have extra 200-300 cases. And actually, we should do our job. Now we have cases only about war crimes, more twice than we have prosecutors. That's why, of course, we need this support with DNA laboratories and other equipment. If we can speak about safety, our investigators, our prosecutors try to be as more as possible closer to line of front, because again it's our job to check everything, to gathering evidences, because no one knows where will be front tomorrow. That's why we should have these possibilities to collect. It means that these investigators and prosecutors need absolutely ordinary shell mats, body arms, and so on and so on. Then, of course, when we speak about supporting our huge hub of collecting evidences, again, it's very necessary, because what is more important for today? It's gathering, collecting evidences, because all we know that these processes, I mean investigation processes and then court processes, will be very long period of time. We should collect, we should protect everything in correct way. It should be allowable evidence and then acceptable evidence and then in the court, in any court, in Ukrainian court, in ICC. We have 18 states who started their own criminal cases in these national jurisdictions too. Thank you. Maybe.
Would anybody else like to come in on it? Oh, yeah, Mr. Hamran, and then the Prosecutor General of Latvia.
Thank you so much. Concerning the funding, indeed, Eurojust budgetary envelope will be reinforced. We will get through budgetary institutions in Brussels additional posts and additional budget. And this is dedicated to the extended competence of Eurojust to core international crimes. Eurojust has, for more already a decade, has a well-established JIT funding structure. Members of this joint investigation team can apply for JIT funding, and we have available resources to finance different activities within this joint investigation team. We are also, as Eurojust, in touch with the European Commission and different services of the Commission to make sure that judicial authorities in Ukraine actually get all the material support they need. Prosecutor General Venediktova already mentioned Kevlar vests, helmets, or off-road cars, 3D scanners, satellite phones, drones, and other equipment which is essential to actually collect evidence in war crime investigations.
Next to you, the Prosecutor General of Estonia would like to give.
Thank you. What I would like to stress is that the domestic investigations, they are actually domestic investigations. There is no one big mega case. The JIT does not mean that we are only copying each other and doing the same thing in different countries. The JIT is centralizing the parts where we need to cooperate. It helps to tackle with issues of overlaps, where you could get evidence from another country, or where there is in consideration maybe to give the proceedings over to another country. So we all have our different cases, and of course the cooperation does not stop with the JIT only. And the other countries who are investigating domestically the similar crimes, we are also cooperating with them, and it is essential that this also works smoothly.
Thank you.
Can I just...
Mr. Khan, yes, certainly, please.
Just in terms of the question, and to follow on from the Prosecutor General of Poland, I'm a big fan of universal jurisdiction. So in addition to the JIT, it's a matter of sovereignty. States can decide to join a JIT or not join the JIT. But what we should do is applaud any authority, any independent prosecutor that is trying to get to the truth and vindicate the rights of survivors. So we're not in competition. This is a shared obligation, not of Eurojust or the ICC or the Prosecutor General of Ukraine or Lithuania or Latvia or Estonia or Slovakia. It is a shared obligation of humanity. So we should stand up. Now, in terms of the finances, every prosecutor will want more resources. But I think objectively, if you look at it, the cost of justice is small potatoes compared to the billions of dollars that are that are expended in conflict. It's much cheaper to fund a judicial mechanism than to buy tanks and missiles. And I think what we need to do more effectively is to realize that the rule of law goes beyond Ukraine. It's of a general anchor for stability and security. And if we can deliver in Ukraine and do better elsewhere, hopefully the funds will come, because in the end of the day, the more law you have, hopefully it will deter the worst excesses of human behavior that we've seen time and time again in our history.
Thank you. One last question. Sorry, the gentleman in the middle there. Could you use the microphone, please?
Bart Duursma, Dutch newspaper NRC, for Mrs. Venediktova. So the first trial took place already, and the first verdict is there, the killing in the Sumy region. Some legal experts doubt that it's smart to do it as fast as it's happening now, while the war is still going on. So my first question is, why is it so important to do it so fast, the trial itself? I understand the investigation, of course, but why the trial so fast? And secondly, do you think it's possible that in the future Russian prisoners will be exchanged for Ukrainian POWs?
Thank you very much for these questions. Actually, every time I am amazed from questions of journalists about trials. Why? Because in Ukraine, journalists ask me, why so slow? Why it's so slowly, 3 months? What have you done all this period of time? International journalists ask me, why it's so fast? After this, I every time ask Prosecutor Khan, be objective and do this job in a balance between fast and slow. Actually, what is my request and answer? We go to court when we are ready. It's not a question what it will be good period of time. We are prosecutors. Actually, in Ukraine for today, near 15,000 cases only about war crimes. Just think about it. Only 15,000. Tomorrow will be extra 200-300. Actually, now in this category of cases, we have near 80 suspects, 80 people whom we can start to prosecute. Actually, we have 3 sentences about murder in Sumy region, and other 2 people where today we have sentences who destroyed civilian infrastructure, who shelled civilian infrastructure in Kharkiv region. We have another case now in the trial. It's about raper who killed husband and raped wife. Actually, it will be in absentia. Now this case in the court. Yesterday we took in the court other case about person, Russian military, who tortured civilian. It means that when prosecutors decided that they are ready, we will go to court. It's not a question fast, it's slow. But it's very important for me. From first days of law, I am not alone. I am with my international colleagues. People who are high class of lawyers, of prosecution and so on. What do you think? If Mr. Khan will be on the ground in Ukraine and will see something, it's not have good quality in judicial sense, what will he will silent? No. Or Lithuanian team? No. Or French? For me, very important to have colleagues on the ground, because one question, when I speak with you, I am Ukrainian prosecutor. I protect Ukrainian people. I protect Ukrainian state. But from absolutely other situation, and when I ask all my colleagues to be with us on the ground, because again, it is objective. We have different expertise, but we all have all level of standards. And it's very important. That's why I am proud of prosecutors who could done this case, actually, in this limited period of time. And of course, when I speak with Ukrainian citizens, I have more questions why we are not so effective and why we don't have hundreds of such people. But actually, when we speak about cases about war crimes, it's very difficult to have all evidences which will be objective. And again, we Ukrainians, we are now fighting for European values, for values of rule of law, of democratic values. It means that we, as prosecutors, will do everything under these values. For me, it's very important. That's why I think that we have good case, actually. Not last, of course, and for us very important that such cases will be not only in our jurisdiction. But again, I understand that 95% of job, we should do it, because we have in Ukraine war, we have everything on our ground, and it's a huge challenge for our judicial system. Other question, the second question was about yes, we have technical possibilities to exchange people who have sentences. It's possible. But again, it's not a question and not competence of Office of Prosecutor General. We have other institutions who have this mandate, not we.
Okay, we come to the end, but one very last short question here in the front, please, Reuters.
Hi, Stephanie Vandenberg from Reuters. I wanted to ask, with the explanation of Mr. Hamran, how the JIT works and all the collective evidence gathering, does that mean, and this then is for Prosecutor Khan, that all the evidence the ICC collects is also going to be available through this joint JIT network? And a joint question for Ms. Venediktova and Mr. Khan, are you talking about how to divide cases, because you said it's good for you that Mr. Khan is on the ground and some cases can go to him. You know, how do you divide these cases? Thank you.
Perhaps if I can just deal with it very quickly in terms of... So it's important, as the President of Eurojust mentioned, I've said repeatedly, and as the Prosecutor General of Ukraine has mentioned, we are independent, we have a particular mandate. It was an innovative decision to join the JIT and be accepted as a participant in the JIT. So we will have full access to the information that is collected by the other state parties, but we're not obliged to share everything we have with the JIT. It depends, because we also have a responsibility in relation to investigations regarding all sides, and that's really important. Can I just also emphasize that these are not European values that we are protecting. It's very important. The ICC is not an arm of the European Union. These are human values. We're bound by these elemental considerations of humanity that are owned by people in Latin America, by Asia, by the Middle East, and all over the world. And I think this is very important to emphasize. The ICC has 123 state parties, from the Pacific Islands to the Caribbean to all over the world, Mongolia, Tajikistan, and of course Europe and elsewhere. And so what we're fighting for are these basic human standards in the 21st century.
Mr. Hamran, would you like to come in, or?
I think the reply of Mr. Khan was very complete.
Okay, thank you. That concludes this press conference. Sorry.
About dividing, yes, I think it's very important for us. For me, ICC, you mean like a Bayraktar and Javelin. It's mean what I can't do. I hope that ICC actually can do it. Again, international justice, it's absolutely other level of justice. We will cooperate. For us, very important that ICC have this case. Actually, when I was in October 2021, I asked Prosecutor Hunt to take cases about Ukrainian situation 2014. It means that we are very interested in our cooperation. And of course, the success of prosecutor of ICC, it is success of Ukraine as a state, and our success and Ukrainian prosecutors too.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all for your attendance. That concludes this press conference. We have time for one-on-one interviews for those of you who had indicated it and we have been contacting. The press release will be available outside as well on the extension of the JIT. If you would like to work here, you can stay in this room until 4 o'clock. And the press conference will be available recorded as well later on. Thank you for your attendance, and thank you to the interpreters.